Hello and welcome to our overview training on the Boulder County BuildSmart residential code specific to compliance for existing homes. BuildSmart is based on the 2021 IECC as published in Chapter 11 of the IRC. In this presentation, we'll give you an overview of how projects in existing buildings, such as additions and remodels, demonstrate compliance with the updated BuildSmart code. You can find the Boulder County Building Code amendments on the Boulder County website. The URL is listed on the bottom of this slide. Once on this page, you will see that the code update went into effect on March 31st of 2025, so all new homes and existing home projects now have to submit for permit using the new code. As I said before, we will be focusing on the BuildSmart section of the code update, which is Boulder County's version of the energy code that is structurally based on the 2021 IECC as written in Chapter 11 of the IRC. We can find a link to the BuildSmart code amendments on the Boulder County website. In addition, Boulder County has adopted provisions of the state of Colorado's electric ready and solar ready and low energy and carbon codes. These sections of the new code will not be discussed as they are not really pertinent to the existing home section of the code. As we dive into the details of the code amendments, we see that the provisions in BuildSmart are the residential code for 1 and 2 family dwellings in Boulder County. This is also where the link between the BuildSmart code and Chapter 11 of the IECC is stated. It should be noted that as amended, the provisions are not interchangeable with the residential energy provisions of the International Energy Conservation Code, or IECC, and therefore you will need to understand the BuildSmart adoption specifically when building an addition to or remodeling an existing home in Boulder County. These are some examples of existing buildings in Boulder County that would have to abide by the BuildSmart code if they decide to do an addition or alteration to the home. For information regarding requirements for additions, remodels, or alterations to existing buildings, you will need to start with Section N1109 of the BuildSmart code. If you are considering an addition to an existing home, you will then focus on Section N1110, and if you are considering a remodel or alteration to an existing home, you will focus on Section N1111. Boulder County has also created a number of submittal guides specifically to help walk you through submitting for a building permit for an addition to an existing home or permitting a remodel or alteration to an existing home. These documents can be found on the county's website. Let's begin with speaking to projects that are adding additions to the existing home. You can see here in the picture on the right that the back portion of the house has been added on as an addition to the existing home. Additions can also be vertical, as the picture on the left shows. In this project, they popped the top of the home and added an additional floor to the home. To begin your compliance journey for your existing home project, you will need to determine the total conditioned floor area of the proposed completed project. This means that the submitted construction documents must include both an existing and the proposed floor plans, so the total conditioned floor area can be verified. Boulder County has defined the way that conditioned floor area of a home is calculated. For the purpose of this code, when determining the conditioned floor area of the home, the floor area shall be measured as the floor area within the inside face of the interior of the air barrier system of the house. This measurement is represented using the red lines in the diagram on the slide, and in this case, the dwelling has 260 square feet of conditioned floor area. This is the floor area used to determine the compliance pathway that you will have to use when you apply for your building permit. Just a note here that will be explained in more detail later. When generating the HERS Energy Rating Index score, the rater will have to follow the ResNet HERS standard ANSI 301 and calculate the floor area based off of a measurement from outside wall to outside wall. I bring this up because you will need to recognize that these two numbers are different and are used to describe the conditioned floor area of your project for different purposes. Again, I will speak to this in more detail in a minute. Similar to new construction, the provisions for demonstrating compliance when proposing to build an addition onto an existing building are broken up by the size of the addition. The prescriptive compliance option can only be used when building an addition that is less than or equal to 500 square feet of conditioned floor area. The prescriptive compliance is a method of adhering to building codes by meeting specific predetermined requirements for individual building components or systems, such as a minimum R value for wall insulation, for example. The prescriptive compliance option does require compliance with Section N1101 through N1104, which are requirements that govern insulation R values, mechanical and lighting installations, and the like. This is a picture of the Boulder County Compliance Guide provided to help understand how to comply with the code requirements for additions. Again, different compliance requirements are laid out for additions of different sizes. Starting with additions that are 500 square feet or less, you can either use the prescriptive compliance alternative or choose to use the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance pathway. You see here that the prescriptive compliance path is limited to smaller additions. If you choose the prescriptive compliance path, you will also have to choose 7 credits from the additional efficiency table N1115.1, which I'll show you in just a moment. Lastly, you will have to comply with the base code additional requirements for the building thermal envelope, HVAC and hot water systems, and any new lighting systems installed as laid out in the N1110 section. That often points you back to N1101 through N1104 requirements in the base code that I touched on earlier. This is a picture of the Boulder County's BuildSmart Code's prescriptive R value table. This table is designed to determine what R values or fenestration requirements must be installed in the new construction portions of the addition without requiring the unaltered portion of the existing building or building system to comply. When using the prescriptive compliance path, it's always a good idea to read the footnotes to the R value table. For example, footnote B tells us that CI stands for continuous insulation. Footnote C explains that when the table says 20 and 7.5, it actually means R20 insulation in the cavity and R7.5 continuous insulation installed on the exterior walls. Footnote E tells us that a heated slab requires insulation at both the slab edge and under the full slab. Therefore, a non-heated slab is only required to have slab edge insulation. And finally, footnote H refers to overhead doors for garages and shops that contain conditioned floor area. This is the additional energy efficiency credit table that you would find in the BuildSmart code for the prescriptive compliance alternative. For additions that are 500 square feet or less, you have to choose to implement at least 7 credits from this table. It should be noted that options listed in this table that have already been integrated into the existing building and installed with a permit may be used to meet this requirement regardless of their installation date or inclusion in the current scope of work. This ultimately makes achieving the 7 credits from this table more manageable as it gives you credit for upgrades to the home that were done before the addition was permitted. Notice that the first additional energy efficiency credit is an energy audit. This could be a ResNet or BPI energy audit or equivalent that was conducted prior to the permitting of the house for an addition or alteration, and it can offer information that is helpful to guide your project toward cost-effective updates to the home that could be made at the same time that the addition is being constructed. Don't forget that there is a requirement to provide documentation about the energy efficiency credits that you choose. Specifically, BuildSmart states that supporting selected additional energy efficiency measure documents, such as an energy audit report, a furnace specification sheet including its efficiency rating, or a proof of installation of an electrical vehicle charging station, must be submitted to Boulder County at the time of permitting if you are claiming the credit for something that was installed prior to the starting of the addition or before the building permit is closed out. There are two cases where additions that are 500 square feet or less must use the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance option. There's no other alternative. First would be additions that are greater than 200 square feet of floor area that result in a home that in total is greater than 2,500 square feet in conditioned floor area. In this case, they must use the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance pathway. The second would be a conversion of a non-conditioned space to a conditioned space. This too must use the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance pathway. Converting an attached garage to a bedroom would be an example of this case. Again, when generating the HERS Energy Rating Index score, the rater will have to follow the ResNet HERS standard ANSI 301 and calculate the floor area based off of a measurement from outside wall to outside wall as represented by the blue lines on the diagram on this slide. In this case, the conditioned floor area is 294 square feet instead of the 260 square feet calculated based on the Boulder County definition and methodology for calculating conditioned floor area to determine what compliance approach to follow. I bring this up again to be clear that you will need to recognize that these two numbers are different and are used to describe the conditioned floor area for your project for different purposes. We are now moving away from prescriptive compliance requirements and we'll be talking about the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance option. The HERS compliance option requires that the existing building plus the addition achieve a maximum HERS Energy Rating Index score based on the size of the addition. If one chooses to use the HERS Energy Rating Index path for an addition that is 500 square feet or less, they have to achieve a HERS Energy Rating Index of 65 or less for the building as a whole unit. Remember that additions that are 500 square feet or less may choose to use the prescriptive approach or the HERS Energy Rating Index approach to demonstrate compliance, with the two exceptions that we just spoke about. For additions that are greater than 500 square feet and less than 1,000 square feet, the home must achieve a HERS Energy Rating Index of 60 or lower, or additions of this size may choose to demonstrate compliance by demonstrating a 30% improvement in energy efficiency with a HERS Energy Rating Index score evaluation prior to starting the work. This means that projects choosing to demonstrate a 30% improvement in energy efficiency using the Energy Rating Index score must first provide an existing home and proposed HERS analysis at the time of the permit application. The existing home HERS energy analysis benchmarks the efficiency of the home on the HERS Energy Rating Index score prior to any work being done on the home. The project's HERS analysis adds in the proposed addition and any other proposed upgrades to the home to demonstrate a 30% reduction in the HERS Energy Rating Index score as a result of the proposed work. Then finally, the project must provide a confirmed HERS Energy Rating Index before the final inspection, and the building permit is closed out per section N1101.13.2, which is the compliance application section of the BuildSmart code. This report is an analysis of the completed project to demonstrate that what was proposed was carried out and completed, therefore the building permit can be closed out. Additions that are greater than 1,000 square feet must achieve a HERS Energy Rating Index score of 70 or lower before solar renewable energy systems are included in the energy analysis. These additions must also meet the HERS Energy Rating Index score listed in Table N1110.2.2 with the addition of solar PV. The table's ERI score is based on the total square footage of the house, not the size of the addition. This would be the existing home plus the addition square footage to get the total conditioned floor area of the project that is used to meet the HERS requirement in Table N1110.2.2. Similar to new construction, this HERS Energy Rating Index table that we have been discussing uses the total conditioned floor area of the house to determine the applicable HERS Energy Rating Index score requirement for the building as rated in its entirety. This is the HERS rating that includes the existing building plus the addition. Because this can be a bit confusing, once again, this would be the existing home square footage plus the addition square footage to get the total conditioned floor area of the project that is used to determine the HERS requirement for the project in the table that is shown on this slide. If an addition project can achieve the HERS Energy Rating Index score represented on this table based on the total conditioned floor area of the house without renewables, they are not required to install a solar PV system to lower the score to achieve the HERS Energy Rating Index score listed on this table. For example, an addition of 1,500 square feet that results in a house with a conditioned floor area of a total 2,000 square feet requires that the house in its entirety achieves a HERS Energy Rating Index score of 66. If this can be achieved when creating the HERS Energy Rating Index score for the existing home plus the addition without renewable energy systems, then the home does not have to install a renewable energy system. If they can't achieve a HERS Energy Rating Index score of 66, they would have to add a PV system to the house to lower the HERS score to the appropriate level. Remember that this potential PV solar requirement is only applicable or only applies to large additions that are over 1,000 square feet. The best way for additions to comply using the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance option is to do a HERS Energy Rating Index analysis at 3 distinct stages. First, conduct a HERS rating of the existing building before the addition is started. This will baseline the existing home's HERS Energy Rating Index performance, and this information is used in the future analysis that includes the addition to determine how to achieve the HERS Energy Rating Index score needed depending on the size of the addition. Second, conduct a projected energy rating index analysis of the existing building plus the addition to determine what energy specifications need to be included in the construction of the addition and what potential energy upgrades may make sense to consider in the existing home in order to meet the required HERS Energy Rating Index score for compliance. For example, does it make sense to air seal and insulate the existing building at the same time the crew is air sealing and insulating the addition? This projected HERS Energy Rating Index analysis is also the compliance report that is needed for permitting the addition. And finally, conduct a final confirmed HERS Energy Rating Index analysis to demonstrate that the building plus the addition complies with the required HERS Energy Rating Index score for that particular project. The HERS score reporting must be turned into the building department before final inspection to close out the building permit. The reality is that the prescriptive and the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance options require compliance with sections N1101 through N1104 as outlined in the additions section N1110. These requirements primarily cover the installation of insulation and other energy features, mechanical and lighting, and compliance report requirements. Compliance with N1101 through N1104 also includes providing construction documents that have detailed diagrams or plan details of the building's thermal envelope. These details must include both floor plan and elevation views to clearly show the building thermal envelope, which includes the continuous alignment of the air barrier and thermal barrier components of the building envelope. The red line in the picture on the right of this slide is an example of the required depiction of the building thermal envelope in an elevation view. In addition, the construction documents must include the insulation values for the new construction components of your addition, and the details in your construction documents must match the requirements of your chosen BuildSmart pathway, either the HERS Energy Rating Index report or prescriptive R value in U factor table N1102.1.2. A HERS Energy Rating Index is required for projects converting unconditioned space to conditioned space. An example HERS Energy Rating certificate is shown on the left side of this slide. This is only one portion of the HERS Energy Rating Index reports that need to be submitted when using this compliance pathway. So make sure that the Energy Rater gives you the full report packet that must be submitted to Boulder County. Now we're going to move on and discuss alterations and remodels. An alteration is defined in the BuildSmart code as any construction, retrofit, remodel, or renovation to an existing structure other than a repair or an addition. Also, a change in a building electrical, gas, mechanical, or plumbing system that involves an extension to an addition or change to the existing arrangement or layout, type, or purpose of the original installation. Alterations may convert unfinished conditioned space to finished space or may impact the building's thermal envelope. Here is the Boulder County Quick Guide for navigating the alterations section of the BuildSmart code that is provided on the Boulder County website. Alterations to a building or structure must comply with the requirements of the code for new construction without requiring that the alteration portion of the existing building or building system comply, except as specified in section N1115, which is the additional efficiency credit we discussed earlier that is also pertinent to alterations. The compliance metric for alterations is that the existing building or structure is not less conforming with the provisions of this alteration section of the code than the existing building or structure was prior to the alteration. Instead of using conditioned floor area, alterations use valuation of the project to determine the path of compliance. When both an addition and alteration are proposed at one project, the valuation provided should be for both the construction of the addition and the altered portions of the project. So first determine the fair market value of the project, including both materials and labor. Be sure to assign a reasonable labor cost, even if the work will be performed by a property owner. In addition, the valuation factor may include the total value of the proposed work plus the value of any permitted alteration that has occurred in the prior 24 months. Any increase in project valuation due to the required energy efficiency upgrades in one compliance pathway are not required to be factored into the determination of the applicable compliance pathway. After you have determined the valuation, then determine if you can use the prescriptive or the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance alternative. Remember, at the time of permit application, the applicant for the building permit is the one that must provide the valuation estimate. Valuations must reflect the total value of the work, including materials, labor for which the permit is being issued, such as electrical, gas, mechanical, plumbing, equipment, and permanent systems that are added to the house. If, in the opinion of the building official, the value is underestimated, the permit may be denied unless the application and applicant can show detailed estimates to meet the approval of the building official. Final building permit valuations shall be set by the building official. Prescriptive compliance is the only compliance pathway used for alterations that have a valuation of $50,000 or less. If the valuation of your project is between $50,000 and $250,000, you can choose to use the prescriptive compliance or the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance alternative. Either way, be sure to clearly indicate on your construction documents the compliance pathway you choose. Prescriptive compliance merely requires that you document compliance with the building thermal envelope, replacement fenestration, heating and cooling systems, service hot water systems, and lighting requirements as spelled out in the alteration section of the BuildSmart Code, section N1111. The additional efficiency credits are only required for alterations that have a valuation of between $50,000 and $250,000. You have to get 5 credits if your valuation is $50,000 to $150,000, and 7 credits if your valuation is between $100,000 and $250,000. When required to choose additional energy efficiency credits, clearly document your choice on the construction documents. In addition, provide supporting documentation that could include an energy audit report, a furnace specification sheet including its energy efficiency rating, or proof of installation of an electric vehicle charging station. This type of documentation must be submitted to Boulder County at the time of permitting if you are claiming credit for something that was installed prior to the start of the alteration or remodel, or before the building permit is closed out. Alterations using the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance approach use the same compliance metric as discussed for HERS Energy Rating Index compliance with additions. This means that the best way for alterations to comply with the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance option is to do a HERS Rating Index analysis at 3 stages as discussed earlier. Number 1, benchmark the home's HERS Energy Rating Index score before the alteration takes place. Number 2, conduct a from plans or projected HERS Energy Rating Index analysis to determine how best to achieve the required Energy Rating Index score for the project. Number 3, when the project is complete and in order to close out the permit, conduct a final HERS Energy Rating Index analysis to demonstrate that the project achieved the level of performance that was projected in step number 2. The benefit of this approach is that you can take advantage of potentially making other cost-effective energy upgrades to the unaltered portion of the home, or in addition to what was previously thought about or planned for. For example, it might make sense to consider adding insulation in the existing attic at the same time that the insulator is out insulating the altered building thermal envelope. Lastly, Boulder County requires that compliance with the BuildSmart Code include proposed designed HERS energy rating modeling, field inspection, and final confirmed HERS energy modeling be carried out by an approved third-party ResNet HERS energy rater. Energy raters are required to view the BuildSmart mandatory requirements for construction professionals video presentation that is located on the Boulder County website. Other construction professionals, such as architects, builders, and trade partners, are encouraged to view the presentation as well. So to conclude, we see that the BuildSmart Code allows a prescriptive compliance option for existing homes that are less than or equal to 500 square feet. But in general, the code really encourages the use of the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance pathway. Again, this enables a more holistic approach that takes into account the existing building and the addition or alteration that will be added to it. Like with new construction, the HERS Energy Rating Index compliance approach can reveal the most cost-effective way to achieve better performance and compliance with the BuildSmart Code. It also has the potential to create more comfort for the homeowner, as there is an opportunity to see what might make sense to address in the existing portion of the home prior to construction. Boulder County staff is available to you when working on your project submittal, so ask questions early in the project if you have them, because there's really no reason to go down the wrong path. Lastly, building is a team sport, so get out there and get your project team together as early as possible to determine the best way to work towards compliance with the BuildSmart code. Thank you for listening to this presentation of BuildSmart compliance for existing home construction. You can download the Boulder County Building Code and amendments that include the BuildSmart code from the web address on the slide, or just Google Boulder County Building Code. On the right side Related Links section, you will see a direct link to the BuildSmart code. If you have questions, please reach out through the email or by the phone number on this slide. Please look at the Boulder County website for all the available presentations that describe compliance with different sections of the BuildSmart code. In addition, you can find the compliance guides and other useful information that will make planning and permitting your building project much easier. So again, thanks so much for listening to this presentation.